Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. David Brooks, and I work at Broughton Global Studies Language Immersion Magnet High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have the honor to serve as the Magnet Program Coordinator, and I also work with my colleague Lee Quinn as co-coordinator of the International Baccalaureate Diploma program at Broughton. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an introduction to the IB Diploma program, primarily for faculty members, administrators, or district level administrators, for folks who are new to the diploma program or who may appreciate having a broader overview of what the program entails. If you happen to come across this presentation from my YouTube channel, and you are the parent of a Broughton student who is interested in the IB Diploma program, there is a separate presentation available specifically about the Broughton IB program, which would be a little bit more detailed in regard to our own policies and course offerings. So I invite you to consult the other video presentation. On this slide, you'll find my contact information. You're welcome to email me or call me if you have any questions or if I can be of any assistance. So first of all, I would like to start with the IB mission statement. And I have obviously a slide deck that I'm sharing with you. I'm not going to read the whole slide deck as we go through it, but this is really critically important. So I would like for you to read this along with me as we reflect on the mission of the organization, because this mission is really central to all of the work that we do. The International Baccalaureate aims to develop inquiring, knowledgeable, and caring young people who help to create a better and more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. To this end, the organization works with schools, governments, and international organizations to develop challenging programs of international education and rigorous assessment. These programs encourage students across the world to become active, compassionate, and lifelong learners who understand that other people, with their differences, can also be right. Again, this mission really should be evident in all of the decisions we make, all of the courses that we teach. It's relevant to our students, it's relevant to our faculty members, it's relevant when we think about course scheduling and examinations and how we plan our curricula. So all of these various ideas are critical to all of the work that we are involved in, and it's worth coming back to this mission on a frequent basis to really reflect on how it's connecting to our daily lives. So next I'd like to present a little bit of information about the context for the IB. And I recognize as we come to this slide that there are some words that are cut off in the corner because of the video, and I'll do my best to explain, even though you may not be able to read all the details. So the IB program globally began really about a little over 50 years ago with a group of international schools, mostly located in Europe, but also in the United States, such as at the United Nations International School. And these were schools where there were children of diplomats, children of people who work for multinational corporations. And these young people were studying the curriculum offered by their individual schools and taking their assessments. But there was a kind of a practical issue that was coming up. The issue was that these students would take their courses and they would learn a lot, but then when they applied to go back to their home countries for university, they might not be admitted, or they may face some challenges because the local universities back in their home countries may not recognize the graduation credential that the student had earned at their high school in the country away from their home of origin. So the IB really began with this problem. It was a practical problem. There were students who were trying to take advantage of their university opportunities at home. And so some school leaders at these various international schools began to communicate back, using the 1970s kind of communication, so not the same ways that we would communicate today. They began to communicate about some opportunities that may come into existence for there being an international sort of education passport, which would be a credential that a student could earn at one high school and then transfer for admission to a university in another place. So that's really how this all started. And then within this, as the school leaders and the teachers, and as a social studies teacher myself, I'd say particularly the social studies teachers in many of these schools, were recognizing that as they're developing a common curriculum with some various local options, of course, that the students were engaging in a really rich education where they were comparing their cultures, where they were learning from each other's languages, learning about each other's backgrounds, learning about the similarities and differences of historic contexts and settings from one place to another. And that this was a very rich collaborative education that was more than really just solving this practical issue, but was providing students with a wonderful opportunity to become global citizens and to become empowered through their learning as they collaborated with their peers from diverse countries. So the organization moved into this from this original issue to having a greater purpose. And the purpose goes back to some of the ideas in the mission statement that we mentioned before, creating a better and more peaceful world where we recognize that others with their differences can also be right. This purpose drives our work, and it also came from a recognition of the wonderful learning that was happening in these multicultural, multilingual contexts of these international schools. Over the 50 plus years of existence, the IB has grown significantly, and it now is located in thousands of schools in most countries of the world. So it is accessible in many places. And it still does offer that university credential that we mentioned before. Also, for universities in the United States, generally it can offer significant university credit, and we'll talk more about that later on in this presentation. The IB does involve 4 programs, and so one of the things that's cut off because of the video of me cut off on this slide, it says there are 4 programs. So the 4 programs offered by the IB are the primary years program, which we think of as elementary school, middle years program, which we in the United States would typically be grades 6 through 10, the diploma program, which is the focus of this presentation, and also the IB career program. The IB career program, like the diploma program, is in the United States taught in grades 11 and 12, and globally it would be in the last 2 years of high school. And the IB career program is a hybrid between some of the aspects of the IB diploma program and some aspects of career preparation, including students graduating with a career credential that they would be able to take and gain employment. There is great value to the continuum of these programs. Most of you watching this video probably came to it through the IB Schools of North Carolina link. And in North Carolina, we do have many districts that offer a K-12 continuum. And that is a really, really rich and valuable opportunity. And I certainly fully support the full continuum. And those of you who are in positions where you may be able to emphasize the creation of a continuum, I strongly encourage you to investigate those opportunities. Down at the bottom, the piece where it is cut off in the bottom left corner says governance and global headquarters. The IB main headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland, and it has been since the organization began. There are also other headquarters in other areas. The main assessment center is in Cardiff, Wales. In the Americas, our primary office for IB Americas is in Bethesda, Maryland. There are also other regional headquarters in The Hague, in Singapore, in Buenos Aires. So these regional headquarters are also very important. So for us in the United States, we work most closely with the IB Americas headquarters in Bethesda. These are the people we would contact for IB authorization issues. They're also the people we would contact if we run into some kind of issue during exams. For example, if there's an emergency or a student illness, we would contact the IB Americas for a very quick response to those kinds of issues. So within these programs, the IB has assurance for a lot of things at very high quality. We have very high quality curriculum, which Some of you listening to this presentation may be already teaching one of these courses, or probably will be teaching one soon. So IB has high quality curriculum that really emphasizes breadth and depth across the curriculum. Within a particular subject, there's often quite a bit of depth of digging deeply into various issues, learning about things at a deep conceptual level. The IB also ensures high quality student assessment. We have various formative and summative assessments in terms of required assessments from which students could earn credit or an IB diploma. There are written exams that students are able to take. In the Northern Hemisphere, we typically offer these in May, although there is also a November session, which is primarily taken by Southern Hemisphere schools. We also have certain required assessments that happen during the course of a class, and we'll talk more about that later on. Those are referred to as internal assessments. The IB also has very high quality professional development, both in person and virtual options. And the IB has excellent school evaluation. So at least every 5 years, all IB schools, in order to maintain their authorization, are recertified. And so schools go through an intensive process for their initial evaluation, as well as for all of their subsequent evaluations, in order to maintain their credential. And so through the evaluation process, the IB provides excellent feedback. Schools implement that feedback and go through a continuous improvement cycle over multiple years to ensure that we are all maintaining the requirements and all providing access for our students to very high quality programs. There are 4 types of IB diploma students. And so I want to, as we're kind of getting into this, I want to give you some information about the various diplomas and certificates that students are able to earn through their IB courses. Again, we're talking about the IB diploma program specifically in this presentation. So this is for the last 2 years of high schools, last 2 years of high school. The majority of schools represented by those who are watching this video likely offer primarily the IB diploma, which is the 3rd bullet on the list you see in front of you. And we'll talk about the IB diploma requirements as we go through the remainder of the presentation. Students, in order to earn an IB diploma, do need to take a certain number of courses at certain levels, and they have to fit certain parameters, and they have to meet a variety of assessed outcomes in order to earn the diploma. I also want to mention that a small percentage of students globally, and I believe it's about 1% of IB diploma students in North Carolina, which is where most people watching this probably are from, are candidates for an IB bilingual diploma. And a bilingual diploma is an additional credential where students take their language A, or kind of their heritage language exams in 2 languages at the level of a native speaker of those languages. So there are some schools that offer this in a variety of ways. Most schools in North Carolina will offer language A courses, or actually all IB schools in North Carolina will offer language A courses in English. There are a few schools where we may also have the opportunity or have enough students to offer a language A course in another language, such as Spanish or Chinese. These programs this is becoming more common as we have increasing numbers of language immersion programs in North Carolina high schools. There is also an option which I wholeheartedly support and teach myself, called school-supported self-taught language A literature, that is available when you have small groups of students or individual students in a school for whom the primary language of instruction of the school is not their first and best language. And then those students can take a guided independent study in that language. So in recent years, I've worked with students taking this school-supported self-taught language A course in Spanish, French, Mandarin, Slovak, Danish, Swedish, Swahili, etc. In most cases, our students take this self-taught course along with the IB Language A course in English with our regular taught subject, and those students then are eligible to earn an IB diploma, IB bilingual diploma. In addition to this, just some terminology. The IB refers to 11th grade students as anticipated students. So that it is anticipated that when they reach the final year of high school, they will be diploma students. And also, there are quite a few schools that offer individual courses. So these are students who don't take the full diploma, but take maybe one or two or three classes. And these students are able to take exams in those subjects, and the IB refers to them as course candidates rather than as diploma candidates. This is a figure that you may have seen before. It's often shared in IB communications, and it's a figure that demonstrates the overall IB diploma program. And we're going to come back to this figure a couple times because the next part of this presentation goes through the layers of this circle from the inside out. And this circle really is a graphic of the various parts of this presentation, but it's also is that because it's also a graphic of the various parts of the program. I know it may be a little bit difficult to see, but at the center of this figure, right in the heart, is the IB learner profile. So that's the next thing that we'll be talking about. Outside of that, also toward the heart of the program are the approaches to teaching and approaches to learning. So these are the learning strategies and the learning outcomes that our students should be learning through their courses. The next part out, the extended essay, theory of knowledge, and creativity, activity, and service, or CAS. This is another layer of program requirements, and really these three parts of the curriculum, the TOK, extended essay, and CAS, really connect through all of those other subject areas outside of them and help to connect them to the approach to teaching and learning and to the learner profile. Outside of that are the various subject groups. You'll notice that there are 6 of those, and we'll talk more about those as we go forward. And then on the outer layer, obviously, we're talking about the IB diploma program. And through all of this, as you see at the bottom, students are developing international mindedness. So we're going to go through these layers, starting right at the center at the IB learner profile. And this is something that's worth lots of discussion and investigation. We could do full workshops on this, but I just want to tell you what the qualities are of the learner profile, and you're welcome to investigate this more independently. So the IB learner profile are various characteristics that all of us, including me, including you, including our students, these are qualities that we have and that we're growing in. Some of us have a lot of gifts in some of these areas naturally. But even in these areas where we don't have natural gifts, the idea is that we are stretching in all of these directions in order to be more well-rounded, more thoughtful, more compassionate citizens. So the various qualities are IB learners are inquirers, they're knowledgeable, they're thinkers, we are all communicators, we are all risk takers, we're all caring and open-minded, we're all balanced. So these are the IB learner profile qualities, and these should be evident throughout all of the learning experiences that students have as a part of all of their IB programs, including the diploma program. If you think back to that figure where you had the IB learner profile right at the middle, the next layer out were the approaches to teaching and learning. So these are the qualities that students are learning and the ways that students are teaching. So students are developing thinking skills, communication skills, social skills, self-management skills, and what's cut off at the bottom, research skills. All of these are evident throughout all aspects of the program, in some places more so than others, but these are the skills that students need to be developing. Additionally, the teaching is inquiry-based. So students are asking really important questions. They're investigating those questions thoroughly. We're encouraging them and priming them so that they are able to come up with answers to these questions. Additionally, learning is focused on big concepts, conceptual understanding, really focusing on the things that are important, and then fitting the details into those big concepts so that they're not just isolated or trivial, but those details really come to an important part of the holistic understanding of bigger concepts and really the world at large. IB learning is situated both in local and in global context. So it's local to our own experiences of where we live and even in our own homes and even in our own local, very interior personal lives. But they're also in global context. The things that I learned today impact the way that I understand the things that are happening in other parts of the world and the way that we as all global citizens think about the world. So all of the learning that we have for IB diploma classes is both personal and local, and it's also global. Learning is very collaborative. In fact, even some of the required assessments are collaborative for some of those internal assessments. IB learning is also highly differentiated to meet all learners' needs. There are a lot of areas of the IB curriculum where students have choices about what they want to investigate, how they're going to investigate. That is about as differentiated as you can expect. And then they have various ways of proposing projects that will ultimately meet various requirements. But the projects that students propose often are their own projects. And so they have great flexibility and opportunity to investigate the things that are of interest to them. Also, what's cut off at the bottom, and I apologize for that. The IB learning is informed by assessment. So students are assessed. We reflect deeply and meaningfully about the assessments that they take. Some of these assessments may be very formal. Some of them may be very informal. Some of it could be just a quick conversation that occurs as a student is passing into or out of a classroom. Some of them could be very formal, extended papers or exams. But all of the assessment really does inform the way that we think about students learning and the way that we make decisions about the next steps and the learning opportunities that we provide for our students as we progress through various courses. So if you think back to that circle, right, that we talked about before, right in the middle, the IB learner profile, then the approaches to teaching and learning, which we just talked about, and then all the rest of this are a couple layers of aspects of the IB diploma program study requirements. And we're going to talk through these. So there are 6 concurrent subjects. So students take courses in 6 different areas. 3 or 4 out of the 6 at the higher level and 2 or 3 at the standard level. Excuse me. Out of these various subjects, students have, in most schools, some flexibility about what will be higher level, what will be standard level. They also have some flexibility about various course options at many schools. So, for example, to meet the science requirement, a school may offer either physics or chemistry or biology or environmental systems and societies, which also can be a humanities course. And I won't get into the details on that right now, but you're welcome to find out more about that transdisciplinary subject. But students have courses in 6 different subject areas. By IB requirements, higher level courses must be taught over 2 years in all situations. The expectation for higher level is that students are learning very deeply and very rich information, and it's not information that they can gather in a brief amount of time. There are some standard level courses that schools will choose to offer in 1 year. And in that case, that may be in the junior year or the senior year, depending on your various requirements and needs within the school. A student by IB requirements cannot be registered for more than 2 standard level exams in the junior year. So what that does is it really emphasizes that the majority of the program must be taught over 2 years. In addition to that, there are 3 aspects of the core of the program. The core involves these things we mentioned before: the extended essay, creativity, activity, and service, and theory of knowledge. And then, of course, the IB learner profile, the approach to teaching and learning, and the IB mission all remain at the center of all of these things, which is why they're at the center of that circle. Now, we're going to get a little bit more detail about all of these components. First, focused on the core of the program, TOK, extended essay, and creativity, activity, and service, which I typically will refer to as CAS, although people at other schools sometimes refer to it in other ways. So first, about theory of knowledge. And again, I apologize about the pieces of this that are cut off. The focus of theory of knowledge is for students to really examine questions like, how do I know what I know? Where does knowledge come from? Who am I as a knower? and what has shaped my perspectives as a knower. There are a variety of optional themes you can see listed on the right side of the slide, focused on technology and knowledge, politics and knowledge, indigenous knowledge systems. This is a course that students will take throughout the program. Um, Schools offer it in a variety of different ways. So, for example, at the school where I work, we offer this course both years, and junior and senior years, all year. Most schools do not offer it for that extended a period of time. And it's actually not required that it has that many meeting hours. But what we do is we integrate also the extended essay and CAS requirements into TOK. So essentially, it's an IB core class that has all of those components within that one particular course. Again, some schools choose to offer this in other formats, which the IB does allow. There is a required assessment for TOK. There's an exhibition where students gather artifacts that demonstrate aspects of knowledge. And there is a formal essay that is required for submission at the end of the course, submission for external evaluation by IB examiners. The second part of the core that I want to mention is the extended essay. The extended essay is an academic research paper. It's kind of like a high school version of a master's thesis. It's not as long, it's not as in depth, but it has that idea of a student really proposing a research question, going out and conducting that research, generally in the ways that people would do that research in that field of study. And they create a final research paper that's submitted for external evaluation by IB examiners. The paper can be up to 4,000 words, and it's generally in the format of an academic research paper. Students do have a supervisor who must be a faculty member at their school. They can also work with additional mentors. It could be a university professor, it could be some other expert in the field, but there must be somebody at their school who really is officially, formally supervising that essay. Typically, the supervisor is someone who does have expertise in that subject area. Students do choose a subject area, so it will be an extended essay in psychology or in environmental systems or in world studies, which is a really interesting interdisciplinary option, or in literature or languages or mathematics, etc. In addition to that, choosing an IB subject area, they also develop their own research question, and it needs to be an answerable question that really is, they investigate that answer. It's not just a big report. So it's not a project where a student can just report on all aspects of some sort of an issue, but they really need to answer a question about that issue, and they use the research that they gather in order to answer that question. I know that on the slide some of the words are cut off, but you can get a sense of some examples of some really good extended essays that we've had submitted over the last couple of years. Also, we have creativity, activity, and service, which is a third part of the core of the program. For CAS, students over the 2 years engage in a variety of experiences. They're roughly balanced among creative endeavors, active experiences, which means physical activity, and service in their community. They are required to have one official thing that they call their CAS project. They develop the project. The only requirement really is that it must be collaborative, and it needs to be something that they create, implement, and reflect on quite deeply, and it must be long-term, so at least for a month. Reflection is really critical for CAS. The focus on CAS is not on collecting a certain number of hours, but instead it's on reflection in relation to a variety of learning outcomes. So you see some language from those examples of reflective learning outcomes. So what are your strengths and areas for growth? How have you worked collaboratively with other people? What are the ethical implications of the decisions that you've made through your CAS? What are the global connections that you can make between the CAS experiences you've had, even when those experiences have happened on a local level? So students keep a portfolio or a reflective journal. and various schools handle this in different ways. But this CAS is a really, really important aspect of the program. One of the things that I really enjoy as a coordinator is when I'm working with students to discuss their CAS or read their CAS materials and hear about the ways that they connect CAS either with TOK or their extended essay or their various courses. And often students will be inspired by something that they learn in a class or learn through their other academic work. And then maybe they find out about an issue and they want to do something about it. And so they go out into the world and they create a CAS experience or develop an official CAS project collaboratively with some of their classmates, and they actually go out and try to resolve a global issue. So CAS is very empowering. And so you'll as you continue to work with the IB program, you'll be inspired by the great work that our students do with their CAS. So those are the three components of the core: the CAS, the TOK or theory of knowledge, and the extended essay. In addition to that, you have a variety of subjects, 6 different subject areas in this figure. They are in the circle that I'm trying to highlight with my cursor here on the slide. So the studies in language and literature, language acquisition, individuals and societies, which is similar to what we usually would call social studies in North Carolina, the natural sciences, mathematics, and the arts or other electives. So students are required to take at least one IB subject in all of these subject areas. As we said before, at least 3 of the 6 must be at the higher level. It can be 4 at the higher level. Again, as I said before, there likely at your school is some flexibility about what is standard level and what's higher level, and also maybe some flexibility within the particular subject areas. I do want to mention in that group 6 category, which is the arts. The art subject areas that are available include things like dance, visual art, music, theater, film. Students are allowed to substitute for one of those arts courses by taking an additional subject from any of the other subject or from most of the other subject groups. So for example, if a student were to take 2 individuals and societies classes like history and geography, then one of those is a group 3 course and the other can become the group 6 course. In my school where I work, we do have a lot of students who take wonderful IB arts classes. We also have students who will take 2 subjects for that group, and one becomes that group 6, 2 subjects either in language acquisition, individuals and societies, or natural sciences. And that is perfectly allowed. So that's something to consider as you are developing your program or as you're advising your students within the program about what options they may want to choose. So next, we're going to move into IB assessment practices. And this is really focused on the formal assessments that are required in order for students to earn an IB diploma. These also are points that students are accumulating that help contribute toward them earning university credit for U.S. universities, which that's generally U.S. universities are focused more on the credit issues and less on the admission, the IB diploma for admission. Universities outside the United States, when students in the U.S. are earning an IB diploma, may be using the IB diploma for admission and less focus on the course credit issues. So there are 2 different categories of assessments. One is called internal assessments. The other is called external assessments. Actually, I'll start with the external assessments because it's a little bit simpler to understand. External assessments are assessments that are evaluated externally. So we submit them to external evaluators and that are trained and very well supervised by the IB, and they assess every one of those assessments. The vast majority of these external assessments are formally given written exams that take place for us in North Carolina, typically in May. But as I said before, there are Southern Hemisphere schools with the November session. Most of them are written exams. The vast majority of them are essays. In fact, as I think through the whole battery of written exams in May, I believe that there is only one section of one exam that any student would take that would be multiple choice, unless they're taking multiple science courses. But most students only take one science course, and for the sciences, there is one multiple choice section for most science courses. Everything else, short answer, or mostly more long essays that they write in response to questions. Most exams also offer some flexibility, so students are allowed to choose various questions that they might answer. And as you're delving into the curriculum requirements for your courses, for most classes, you'll notice that there are some options, and the IB will say you must teach X number of options. And so students, when they focus on their exams, they'll be able to choose from among all of these options also for which questions they actually answer. In addition to this, there are internal assessments. So internal assessments are graded by the teacher. They are the same assessment given across the world. There is a common rubric. Teachers are trained in their formal IB training on how to assess these internal assessments. Teachers submit their scores to the IB, and then for all of their students. And then what happens is the IB responds with a list of students. And this list of students are the students who are sampled. And then we give back to the IB, to their examiners, the samples of those students' work. Formally trained IB examiners then study those students' work, and they decide their impression of the teacher marking. And if the teacher was too hard, then they'll raise the scores for all the students, not just the ones sampled, but all the ones from the school. If the teacher was too easy, then they'll lower the scores for all of those students. And then in the summer, the IB will provide feedback on that marking. And typically over a couple years of experience, teachers get almost spot on with their marking as they do this. And this is a way that the IB helps to ensure that all teachers globally really are expecting the same very high level of rigor for their courses. And it's a way of the IB providing direct feedback to their students. So these internal assessments typically count about 25% to a third of the score for each IB course. The external assessment is the remainder of it. There is some variation, though, certainly. Some of the arts especially have a much higher percentage that focuses on internal and less for external. And of course, many of the arts, with the exception of music, there are no written exams for the arts. All of that for external really are portfolio type works that students submit for external evaluation. From these assessments, students earn a number of points per course. The highest level is 7. The lowest is 1, or I guess really the lowest would be like an N, which is like non-scorable, non-submission. But generally, it's a 1 to 7. 7s are typically rare and really, really excellent. 1s are pretty uncommon when you look at the data globally as well as in North Carolina, and they're quite not very good, to be honest with you. In order to earn an IB diploma, a student must earn a total of a minimum of 24 points from those 6 different subject groups. So if you do the math there, you see it averages to, they must earn an average of 4 per subject. There is a little bit of leeway there, especially with standard level courses. There are also some picky rules with this that we won't get into. But you're welcome to look into that or talk with your IB coordinator at your school to get more specific details on what's involved with how students earn an IB diploma. For the TOK and extended essay, this is a point matrix that demonstrates how students also can earn bonus points or situations that would be a failing condition for the diploma, based in their performance on those various assignments. So on the left, these are extended essay grades. On the top, these are TOK grades. And you see that you match the columns and rows up together to determine the additional points that students will earn. These points can be helpful if, for example, a student earns a 3 on a standard level course and they need an additional point, then they can earn an additional 1, 2, or 3 points based in the quality of their theory of knowledge and extended essay work. Many students do earn at least 1 bonus point. we have quite a few who will earn more than one bonus point. So this really is helpful for students as they are earning the diploma. I have students every year who do earn their diploma because of one or more of these bonus points, who are at that 23 mark and need the additional bump. So this really does help those students out. Before I get into, I've switched over to a new slide, but I wanted to add about the credit policies. And granting the diploma. As I said before, typically, the earning the IB diploma for our students is a really important credential. From a practical standpoint, there are a few universities that will provide additional credits for earning the diploma. In additional beyond just individual course credits. There are many universities abroad who will not recognize a North Carolina diploma. So for them, earning an IB diploma may be an admissions requirement. So if you have international student populations at your school, that's something to be aware of. And it may even be worth if you have a cohort who happen to be from the same country. For example, I have dealt with a pretty large number of students from Denmark, but they moved connected to North Carolina, moved to North Carolina in connection with a particular company. Those students have moved back to Denmark, and for them, it was helpful for me to learn quite a bit about the Danish university requirements. That's something that if you have a situation like that, you may want to kind of look into it, the university admissions requirement. The vast majority of the students I work with, though, the most important thing for them with these points is for them to earn university credit, advanced university credit. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about how that works later on. The IB does have a variety of policies that are required for each school. So if you're in a new IB school, then you may be developing these. If you're in an established school, then these should exist already. They're required for authorization. So you may want to ask about them. There is a required academic honesty policy, required assessment policy, required inclusion or special needs policy, a required language policy, and the one that's cut off, an admission policy. So it's important that you know what these things are. Academic honesty for all schools is going to address issues, how you address issues of cheating, plagiarism. The IB refers to these as malpractice. So it's important that you are familiar with that, and that you understand when there is an issue that comes up. And I know we all hate dealing with these issues that come up, but when there is an issue that comes up, that you know sort of what's an in-house issue, meaning you handle it within your school versus what you communicate to the IB. Because there are some circumstances where it's one versus the other. And that's important to know some about. In relation to the special needs policy, just to let you know, the IB does have a wide range of exam accommodations and modifications that are allowed or able that students can apply for. Their application for this is separate from just having a 504 plan or an IEP. So we do apply specifically to the IB on behalf of the student, and we have to have some various documentation for that. There are lots of accommodations that are allowed. I know for us, the most common is extended time, but there are also allowances for students to be able to use a word processing program when they're taking exams, or students being able to have exam papers that are written in Braille or printed on a different color paper. So there are a wide range of possibilities. And if you're working with a student who may have some special needs, it's worth talking to your coordinator, or if you are a coordinator, kind of talking with other coordinators or directly with the IB to find out some more about how you apply for these various accommodations. The language policy I just mentioned, I think, is also very important. It's important that schools support students in the development of the primary language of instruction. It's also really important in the language policy for schools to consider how they support the student's mother tongue when that mother tongue is not the same language as the primary language of instruction of the school. And there are some various ways of doing that, such as offering the school-supported self-taught language A literature course that I mentioned previously in this presentation. There are other ways to do this as well, but I just want to throw that out as an area of consideration. Also, the word cut off here, just behind where my head is located on the slide, is the admission policy. There are some schools that have very rigorous admissions policies and require certain test requirements or GPA minimal requirements or teacher recommendations. I will be very upfront with you, and this is just my personal statement. I know people feel very differently about it. We have an open admission policy at my school. I think that's really valuable. I think the IB diploma program can be accessible to many students, and instead of putting up barriers, I want to open barriers, open doors, and invite students to join us. I certainly do want them to know that it's a rigorous program and have full transparency about what's involved in the program once they join it. But I really do believe in the value of the program. We have had a lot of students who have come into the 11th grade and have not had the best academic records from grades 9 and 10, and have had even sometimes had teachers who have come to me and said, "Oh, I don't know if this student really should be in the IB program. The student is not that organized or doesn't work that hard or whatever." And then they really pull it together and do great work, and think deeply and think critically and have great results. And we've had that happen often enough that, at least for my school, I can say an open admission policy is the way to go. So that's something that I just throw out there for your consideration. And actually, I've sort of addressed this a little bit. So in terms of IB diploma admission, these are things to consider: open access, minimal requirements, prerequisite courses. Again, we're open admission policy. We do recommend certain courses, but we don't require. These are things to consider, especially if you were developing or revising or updating your program planning. Another thing to consider about these issues, I was talking about having an open access program. Access in general is really important to the IB. I think it's the gold standard of education that we offer in North Carolina. I know that people disagree with me on that. That's okay. But I have my own perspective on that based on my own experiences. But some things to consider for access: as much as possible, make sure that the IB diploma is paired with North Carolina graduation requirements. We have fantastic advocates at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and they really want to make sure that the IB diploma is available and accessible for our students, and they will help with this. So if we run into issues, when there is flexibility, then it's students will be able to meet both North Carolina and IB requirements simultaneously. Another access issue to consider is, and various schools handle it different ways, but I think it's really helpful. This is my perspective. When a student walks into my school in the 9th grade, regardless of what they've taken before, I want to be able to offer them an IB diploma program. One of the ways to do that is to make sure that there is a path available for students who take Math 1 in the 9th grade. And so for us, that's through Math 1, 2, 3, and IB Math Applications SL. There are other ways that schools do this, but I do believe that this is a really important option. The next point, there is a world languages option called Ab Initio, which means from the beginning. And this, for us, really is kind of, we embed it within levels 1 and 2 of our world languages courses, but really it's more than just levels 1 and 2. But that's how we schedule it. Plus, really, honestly, a lot of work in the summertime between those two levels. But this allows students who have not previously taken world languages to take an IB route. And it is meant to begin in the 11th grade, typically for students. Most of our IB diploma students will take 4, 5, 6, 7 years of world languages. We have a new Spanish Immersion program starting next year with students who were in Spanish Immersion back to kindergarten. So we offer a whole range of options, and I know we're fortunate in that way. But I do encourage that every school have at least one ab initio option to encourage access. Other issues here with access, make sure that you really think carefully about what's in your special needs policy. How do you as a program and as a teacher support students who have special needs? The language policy is important. How do you support students in the diploma program if their mother tongue is not the primary language of instruction in your school? It's important that they can participate, and it's great to provide them access. So how do we do that? And how do we provide those inclusive assessment arrangements, which are the exam modifications or exam accommodations that we are able to provide for formal IB exams? And of course, if a student has an IEP or a 504 plan, those various accommodations or modifications would be allowed in just ordinary classroom tests and other interactions. Another thing about access, I know much of this is cut off, but it is an encouragement again to offer the school-supported self-taught language A literature class for students for whom English is not their first language, and also really to build in for access, build in community buy-in. Really demonstrate how fantastic the IB program is to your community through student presentations, through your presentations, by building bridges with your community organizations, and by using your students to go out with their cast and make a difference in your community. And then people will recognize the value of it, and they will want their own kids to participate because they see how wonderful the IB students are, and that promotes access and participation. So those are some ideas on access. So moving on, kind of another area that people ask very frequently about is the other most commonly university level program that we offer in our schools in North Carolina and across the country, which are advanced placement courses. These are a few bullet points to consider. I know if you're watching this and you're new to the IB, in many cases, teachers who are new to the IB may have taught AP before. So you kind of have to start thinking about what is this that's different about the IB? And there's certainly some similarities. There are also some really dramatic differences. First of all, with the IB, there is the IB mission, which we quoted earlier in this presentation, and the focus of the learner profile and the development of the ATLs, which is approaches to teaching and learning. That's embedded throughout the program, throughout all courses, throughout all experiences. And that's the AP doesn't have that sort of unified mission, vision, and aspirations for their students. So that's something to consider. Another issue, global versus US focus. So all IB courses and experiences do require a global focus. And global university level preparation. So IB really was developed, as I said early in the presentation, with the intention of providing university access on a global scale. So students do have the option of going globally to university. Another issue is a difference, breadth versus depth. Both programs, AP and IB, both offer depth, both offer breadth, but there's a difference in scale, I think, in both of these areas. So the IB focus, I would say, is more of a focus on depth within the particular courses. Now, breadth, there is a focus because it's across a range of courses that are required for the full IB diploma. But the depth of the courses is where students really are doing these individual investigations through their internal assessments and through the extended essay and through the various options where they where the student or the teacher has chosen that students are studying, and that depth is really, really important. That's also connected to the types of assessments that students complete in the IB, which are primarily written essays, more longer essays, very little multiple choice. So it provides a great opportunity for students to show what they know and how they think about it, how they evaluate information. And it's less about them looking at other materials and selecting from a multiple choice question, selecting someone else's impression of what the correct answer would be. With that, the assessment is on students' critical thinking. So how has a student demonstrated their critical thinking through their writing, through their projects, through their oral presentations? The IB also has a focus on assessment in the classroom. So formally assessed materials, such as internal assessments and some external assessments, are formally assessed in the classroom. So that makes it so that some of the points and some of the focus is not just on the exam at the end, but it's on the ongoing classroom interactions throughout the whole year or even across the 2 years. That's really, really valuable for the IB. Also, the IB, and this is getting down at the bottom where some of it's cut off, it is interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary in approach. And that's very important. So there are connections within and among all of the subject areas, and with TOK, and with CAS, and the extended essay, and the ATLs, Proficiency Learning, and the mission. All of it's connected in every direction. So that interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary approach is really central to the IB experience for students. The next one, which is cut off, commitment differences. So the IB diploma, if a student chooses the whole program, is the majority of coursework that they will complete in the last 2 years of high school. Not all of the coursework necessarily depend on your school schedule, but it is going to be the majority. Of course, with AP courses, generally students could choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 AP classes a year. So that's a very different level of commitment depending on how many courses that student may choose to take. The next few slides go through some tips for success. A lot of these are tips that come from my own students that I've worked with as IB diploma students at Broughton High School in Raleigh. So things to encourage success: really encourage program access and good preparation. Have a good continuum of courses and opportunities through high school. Think about what you're offering in the 9th and 10th grades. If it's an IB MYP, that's exceptional. Many schools are not in a position to offer an MYP. You are able to construct plans to have good alignment, good vertical alignment through your courses from grades 9 through 12. Also, really think a lot about how to help students to learn to balance their stress, provide stress relief, brain breaks, how to juggle their schedules. And that connects very well to CAS through. So for a lot of students, that physical activity is really important for balance and stress relief. Also, other aspects of CAS like service are important with balance. Is an important part of our lives as human beings, to be in service and in collaboration with other people. All of this, especially the schedule juggling, is really important as students are developing their self-management, which is one of the key aspects of the approaches to teaching and learning. And we really are obligated as IB teachers to help students learn how to do these things, help them navigate the complexities of taking a rigorous course load, and help them to break down their schedules, break down their big assignments into smaller pieces, make things, help them take a big project and break it down into smaller pieces so it feels achievable, and that students can start to recognize their success early on in the process and build their confidence, rather than waiting until the end and being so overwhelmed by a big task that they really just can't even get started. Also, really make sure that we have good communication within the teacher so that we can try to help balance out each other and work around each other when we have those crunch times in order to support our students and help students find their sources of motivation. Whether it's they need to find a reward for themselves when they finish a big project, or if they just need to organize their day so that things feel accomplishable and so that they find success. Help students cultivate their sources of motivation. That's something we all work on ourselves, but also we definitely want to help students with that. These are some questions that we ask students to reflect on as their IB diploma students, and I think these help to cultivate the motivation for them personally, but they also help us to connect with them. So if you're starting an IB course, these are some good things for you to know about the students with whom you're working. What do you look forward to as an IB student? What do you look forward to as a citizen? How do you want to make a difference? What do you want to learn? What do you want to accomplish? What are your aims as an intellectual human being? What are your aims as a human being in general? These are the kinds of things that's good to know about kids. And then as we're dealing with these really complex assessments, we can help students connect these assessments with their personal aims and goals, with their personal motivations. And then it helps to build a sense of accomplishment and opportunity for students so that they have a lot of buy-in. Some of our own recent graduates at Broughton High School have provided advice, and I just put this together in case you're curious. Students say that it's important that students learn to manage their time, not to be afraid to ask questions, actually read the books that are assigned. um, not Don't get too engulfed in your work. Do things for fun. Avoid procrastination. Get started on things early. Um, don't throw away first year material because you'll use it in the second year. When you have students at the end of the first year and they talk about, if they want to kind of clean stuff out, tell them don't get rid of your first year IB stuff because you are going to need it again. Students, figure out ways to stay curious and don't just work for the grade. Work to develop themselves, to develop their own interests and curiosities. Read the books, study hard, schedule your time to get sleep. That's really important. We have, especially our IB juniors at the beginning of the program, sometimes they struggle to find opportunities to sleep. And I think it's critically important that we help them to navigate their schedules so that they can stay healthy. Because if they're not healthy, then the rest of it is, falls by the wayside. And, a lot of times, when I hear from a student who is ill, physically ill, or if they're dealing with some kind of psychological or social issues, my first response is always, you have to take care of yourself first. A lot of times students are very apologetic about being slow to get their schoolwork done because they're dealing with some kind of issue. That's one of the benefits of a 2-year program. There's time for students to take care of themselves and for us to take care of them. And really at the heart of all this is that learner profile. We are all caring people. And we it's really important that we demonstrate that care very authentically. And until that's happening effectively, it's hard to really scaffold these students to reach those more upper levels of what you think of as like Maslow's hierarchy. First, we got to take care of ourselves and take care of each other. Some things to think about with program maintenance. Vertical alignment's important. 9 through 12 is important. K-12 can be really helpful. So think about that within your programs and within your school and your feeder schools. It's important to have great teacher recruitment, preparation, and continual improvement. So we all are learners together. It's important to think about budgetary concerns. So if you're a coordinator or if you are an administrator at a school or district level administrator watching this, you really have to think about budgeting for training, budgeting for any fees that are required. Now, we're very fortunate that North Carolina does pay for a lot of our fees now through our tax system, a lot of assessment fees, but there are other fees that are involved. It's important to protect those in your budget. Really do think about how to integrate with other requirements, local requirements, state requirements, university admissions requirements. It's important as we maintain our programs, stay up to date on curriculum and assessment needs. Coordinators typically get pretty decently often some communication from the IB. We also have various ways of checking on things as, issues, updates as they come out. There are a variety of helpful resources for you. One is our IB regional office. Those of us in North Carolina do have a couple people that we work with who represent the IB directly to our schools. And those of us who are coordinators meet with those people and communicate with them. So those are excellent resources. Additionally, for all of us, there is a system called MyIB, which you can access through ibo.org, and then particularly the Program Resources Center. If you have not logged into IB and you are into MyIB and you are an IB teacher, please get in touch with your coordinator who will be able to help you access the system. This is where you'll find curriculum materials, assessment information, teacher support material, samples of exams and internal assessments that have been scored, so you can use those in your classes. Also, for helpful resources, there are a variety of publishers that are very helpful. One you see on the slide is Oxford University Press. They have many great resources. There are also other publishers like Cambridge and others that do offer IB textbooks, exam prep books, and other materials. Also, use exam papers. We have released exam papers that are available to us. Use them. Use them with your students. Do mock exams. Study them when you're creating your own in-class tests. And then the last part on this slide, which you really can't see, but use our local network. Use the IB Schools of North Carolina network. Use the people you connect with when you go to your workshops. We are a network of colleagues, and we're here to support each other because ultimately we want to take care of each other so that we can take care of our students and help them to be better people, be better thinkers, and ultimately for all of us to live this mission to create a better and more peaceful world. So it takes all of us working together to do that because we believe in this mission and know that it will happen because we trust in the future world that our students are creating. Kind of getting to the end, outcomes research. The IB has a wonderful list of research studies that you can access through the website that's listed on the slide. There are a lot of really interesting pieces of research related to global understanding, time management, persistence, impact of university preparation, impact of CAS, how TOK affects university work, lots and lots of information. So I strongly encourage you to check out the research that's available on that ibo.org/research website, and share this information with your parents, your prospective families. Use it to market your programs. These research outcomes are really dramatic in how they demonstrate the successes of the IB programs. So thank you for joining me for this presentation to present the IB Diploma program to you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to get in touch with me. You have my contact information on the screen. I'm so excited that you have joined this IB world. We're grateful to have you as a part of us. We're happy to work with you, to support you in any ways that we can. Anytime that you would like to reach out with questions or ideas, please feel free to do so. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful start to your IB journey.